how the night started, who you were with, and your plan for the evening. It was a Friday night, and I was out celebrating with my friend Macy after her final exams of her first quarter at the University of Washington. She had done so well and gotten all A's. So to celebrate, we were going out for a fun girls' night on the town in Seattle. This trendy spot is known for its vibrant and colorful atmosphere, complete with a huge unicorn statue and decor that would make any Instagram feed pop. Macy and I decided it was time to move on to the next stop on our bar crawl. We took an Uber over to the Q nightclub, which is known for its cutting-edge electronic music scene. The interior of the club was sleek and modern, with a huge dance floor and state-of-the-art sound system. The crowd here was different from the other bars we had visited earlier in the evening. There was a mix of locals and tourists, but the majority of the people we encountered were young professionals dressed to impress. The music was loud and pulsating, keeping us energized as we made our way to the bar to order another round of drinks. I opened up the Uber Eats app on my phone and began browsing the options near my hotel. My roommates were thankfully asleep still, so I slipped out of bed and went to the bathroom. The smell of freshly brewed coffee immediately drew me in, and I sat down at a table to wait for my order. I tried to rationalize it away, thinking that maybe I was just tired and imagining things. But as I unlocked the door to our apartment, I noticed that it wasn't the same as when I had left it the night before. The furniture had been rearranged and the TV was on. The city has a darker side that I had no idea existed before I visited. The homeless population is large and visible, and it can be unsettling to come across them in certain areas, especially at night. The drug and alcohol addiction issues are also prevalent, and it can be hard to navigate around those who are heavily intoxicated or under the influence. Additionally, the crime rate in Seattle is higher than I expected, and I found myself questioning my safety when I was alone and out late at night. It was a rude awakening that made me realize that even in a seemingly beautiful and progressive city like Seattle, there are still many social issues that need to be addressed. Overall, my experience getting lost in Seattle at night was a mix of excitement and danger, and it gave me a unique perspective on the city's culture and lifestyle. While I wouldn't recommend getting lost in Seattle intentionally, I do encourage anyone visiting the city to explore and embrace the unexpected, as it may lead to some unforgettable experiences. And as I walked further into the apartment, I realized that my bag was on the floor and my laptop was missing. Panic started to set in as I realized that we had been robbed. I quickly checked my phone and thankfully it was still there. That's when I knew I had to call the police. As I sipped on my coffee, I couldn't help but notice the unique decor of the cafe. The walls were covered in quirky artwork, and the tables were adorned with colorful tablecloths. Despite being out alone and in some unfamiliar places, I never once felt in danger. The people I encountered were friendly and helpful, even though I was stumbling around clearly intoxicated. Additionally, the city's public transportation system is top-notch, making it easy to get around without a car. Ubers and taxis were readily available whenever I needed one, and the buses and streetcars were always on time. Just as I finished my coffee, my breakfast arrived. I had ordered a simple egg sandwich, but it was anything but basic. The eggs were perfectly cooked, the bread was soft and fluffy, and the bacon was crispy and well seasoned. It was one of the best breakfast sandwiches I had ever tasted. I looked at myself in the mirror and couldn't believe how pale I had become. It was then that I realized I desperately needed some coffee. As I stumbled out of the bathroom, my eyes landed on the mini fridge in the kitchen, and to my surprise, I found a bottle of wine that I didn't recognize. I turned to my roommate Emma, who was still fast asleep on the couch, and asked her if the bottle of wine belonged to her. When she woke up, she looked at me with a confused expression and said, "What are you talking about?" Puzzled by her response, I decided to let it go and headed out to find some coffee. After scrolling through several pages of restaurants, I decided to go with Dick's Drive-In, a local burger joint that was open 24 hours a day. But I ordered a classic cheeseburger with fries and a Coke, and within minutes, my food arrived at my doorstep. The burger was juicy and flavorful, and the fries were crispy and well seasoned. It was exactly what I needed to satisfy my late-night cravings. However, this time, I decided to switch things up and opted for a glass of red wine instead of a cocktail. As I sipped on my wine, I couldn't help but notice how diverse the crowd was. People from all walks of life were united on the dance floor, moving together as one under the hypnotic beat. We said our goodbyes to our new friends and headed off into the Seattle night. Our next destination was a Latin-inspired hotspot called Roomba, but the energy at Q was infectious, and I couldn't bring myself to leave just yet. We danced until the early hours of the morning, losing track of time as we moved to the rhythm. It was such a random and unexpected encounter that I couldn't help but burst out laughing. We hadn't seen each other since he had moved to California years ago, and it was so strange to bump into him in the middle of a bustling Seattle nightclub. He was with a group of friends who had come to visit him in Seattle, and they were just as surprised to see me as I was to see them. We caught up for a few minutes and exchanged stories about what we had been up to since we last saw each other. It was great to reconnect with him, but I knew it was time to move on. I had to hit the road to get back to my hotel before my roommates woke up and started asking questions. Saying goodbye to Alex was bittersweet, but I promised to catch up with him properly next time we saw each other. Finally, as the sun began to peek through the cracks in the curtains, we knew it was time to call it a night. We hailed a cab and headed home, both of us feeling exhilarated and slightly tipsy from our adventures around Seattle. As we arrived, we were greeted by the sounds of salsa music spilling out onto the street. The lively beat instantly got us in the mood to dance, and we couldn't wait to step inside. Inside, the energy was electric. Couples swayed to the music in the dimly lit lounge area, while others showed off their best moves on the dance floor. The bar itself was a sight to behold with its dark wood accents and mosaic tiles. We grabbed a table and ordered some appetizers while we debated what drink to get next. The bar itself was buzzing with activity and the energy was high as we made our way through the crowd to grab a table. I could feel the excitement building as I settled in and ordered myself a Cosmopolitan. This drink, with its combination of vodka, triple sec, cranberry juice and lime, was not only delicious, but also felt like the perfect choice for a night out on the town. As I sipped on my drink, I couldn't help but notice the eclectic mix of people around me. There were groups of friends catching up over drinks, couples on dates, and solo adventurers like myself, all brought together by the promise of a fun night out. We got ready, put on our favorite outfits, and headed out for a night that we would never forget. We began the evening by meeting up with some of her new friends from her sorority at a bar called Unicorn on Broadway. As the evening wore on, the music started to pick up and the dance floor began to fill up. After a few hours at Roomba, we decided it was time for a change of pace. At this point, we had been out for several hours, and I was starting to feel the effects of the alcohol and the exhaustion of a long week. The wildest, funniest, or strangest moment of the night? As we were making our way through the crowds at the Q nightclub, I suddenly found myself face to face with someone I hadn't seen in years. My cousin Alex, where you stopped for late night food after arriving back at my hotel. I knew that I needed some sustenance after a long night of dancing and drinking. The next morning, I woke up feeling a little bit sore and definitely hungover. As I walked down the street, I noticed a cute little cafe called Hot Mama's Pizza. As I walked back to my hotel, I couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't right. What you learned about Seattle's nightlife vibe and its unexpected side, getting lost in Seattle at night, taught me a lot about the city's nightlife vibe. First and foremost, it's incredibly safe. However, what truly surprised me was the unexpected side of Seattle that I discovered during my adventure.